Are you ready to buy a custom guitar? My friend Nathan Wright is building me my dream guitar, and I have the spec sheet here in front of me. I want to walk through all the things that go into customizing and speccing out your dream guitar. One of the most magical guitars I've owned in the last of my life, let's just say of my lifetime, was a guitar I stumbled into by accident. I didn't know Nathan Wright from anyone, but someone traded me a guitar a couple of years ago in 2021 maybe, and I wound up with number 36, which is a Wright Lutherie guitar. It's made by Nathaniel Wright in Mickmanville, however I say it. People are going to say from Tennessee that I'm saying it wrong. I got a guitar from him that was magical. It was a maple back and sides, Sitka spruce top, tiny headstock, really beautiful inlay. And I wound up with this guitar, and I basically was in it for almost nothing. It was two guitars that came from me, that came to me. It was a Taylor AD17, that's where my Taylor went, and it was a Fender Acoustasonic Telecaster, a Player's Tele. Both of those traded away. I got a boutique guitar, and I figured at the time there is no way that getting a boutique guitar could be a bad idea, and it has changed my life. Nathan has become a quick friend, and I love that guitar. Here's how that guitar sounds. It is the most bassy and most punchy maple guitar. It has entirely changed how I would view maple back and side guitars, or how I would hear these guitars. It has this force field of low end and bass around it. Now, I owned this guitar for about 2 years, and during that time, I loved it. I played it a lot. For a little bit, I traded it to my friend Daniel, and Daniel gave me an Epiphone Casino for it. And so we played around with that for a little bit, and then I ended up missing the Wright Lutherie, and he ended up missing his Casino, and so we traded back. And once we traded back, I realized this guitar is so special to me, so meaningful, so important, and I wanted to keep it forever. Then, a few months later, in another deal, I got tangled up, and somebody laid claim. They're like, well, basically I owed somebody a chunk of money on a deal, and they said, well, I'll take the Wright Lutherie if you're willing to part with it. And I didn't really want to, but it was time. And so number 36 ended up going to another guitar playing friend, and Billy, I'm glad you have it. It's a beautiful, amazing guitar. Coming out of that guitar, I knew I love that guitar and I want another one like it, but there are definitely some tweaks because that guitar wasn't made for me. And so I wanted to get one that was made for me. So Nathan Wright is building me a new guitar. He sent me this document, and I just want to walk you through. If you're considering buying a boutique guitar, it's overwhelming, but it is also really, really satisfying and exciting. So let's jump into this, and this is going to show you, I'm going to show you all of the questions that you would get asked because it gets into the very nitty-gritty. So the first thing that it's going to be asking you about is what body size do you want? So the guitar that I'm going for with Nathan, I'll just cruise through this. I'm going for a slope shoulder dreadnought. We're going to do a 14 fret. We're doing a Gibson style guitar. One thing I learned in this process is that the original Gibson J45s and advanced jumbos were actually a little smaller than they are now. They're about 1/8 of an inch smaller in all dimensions, and so we decided to go with that. The top, I wanted Adirondack spruce. Now, I was totally okay with Sitka spruce, but Nathan has really remarkable Adirondack, and while we can get it, why wouldn't we get it? Adirondack spruce is a louder and more resonant kind of tone wood than Sitka spruce. Sitka is a little more, maybe less dynamic. I like Sitka, I have no issues with it, but Adirondack is so beautiful, so we get some really beautiful stark grain Adirondack spruce. Behind that, the back and sides, no one has built a maple guitar that sounds as good to me as Nathan Wright. I mean, maybe Boucher at this point, but Nathan's, what he's doing with maple back and sides is remarkable. So it's beautiful, it is sustainable, it comes from North America, all of the things. This guitar will be almost entirely North American tone woods, and man, that means a lot to me. So we chose the maple back and sides. We're doing really curly, really beautiful maple. Nathan is just starting to send me pictures now. This is July 1st. So we are figuring out what this guitar is going to be right as Nathan is starting to work on it. Now, I did fill this out a couple months ago. Mahogany end and tail block. Yep, we'll do that. Your other options would be probably maple, but everybody's using mahogany at this point. The N-block maple support strip, that would be on the outside of the guitar. Sure, let's do that. That's that tailpiece. That'll look really pretty. The top bracing, we're going to do Sitka. Sitka is better for bracing because it's tighter grain, and so that's where most of them will be. Sitka bracing, even with a red spruce top or a Adirondack top. The back bracing, we're going to do Sitka. The bridge plate is going to be maple. We're going to do really hard rock maple for that because the bridge plate, if you don't know, you have a bridge of the guitar, you have the top of a guitar, and then on the inside you glue the bridge plate. The bridge plate needs to be really punchy, resonant, tough for a couple things. It needs to survive lots of the ball of the strings sitting against it and really pressing a lot of pressure for decades and decades. I want this guitar to last 100 years, and so it needs to be tough. It also is where your strings really connect and interface with the body, and it spreads your tone out. So having a very resonant, very clear, bright bridge piece or bridge plate is really important because if you have other materials like mahogany, or I don't know mahogany, but if you would have rosewood or if you would have something that's softer, more spongy, it can sound a little thumpy. If you haven't played, think about Martins from the 70s. They're all kind of thumpy and you can't quite put your finger on it. Like why is it thumpy? It's usually because of a rosewood bridge plate. So we're doing maple for the bridge plate. We are doing a center seam spruce strip down the back of the guitar. We're doing kerf lining on the inside. That's just a thing that that is what gives you those corners. When you look inside a guitar, it's the strip of wood that is cut and it's able to make all the turns for the inside of the top and the back of the guitar. That gives you some substantial meat in that corner. Between the top and the sides, it gives you something that if you cut into, you can then have some wood that would give you some space for your binding and perfing and all that stuff. On the top, so that's where this guitar does get a little different. So on the outside of the body, one of the big things that I want to do is I just want bright ass maple on the back and sides, that bright white sheet of paper maple. Used to hate it, but now I really love it. And then on the front, we're going to do a sunburst. And so there's a bunch of stuff with this. The binding, I want it to be black, white, and black with Ivoroid on the outside. And then we're going to do herringbone. I looked, there's all kinds of stuff that we'd talked about, some green herringbone or some really weird looking stuff. I'm not totally sure where we landed on that, but this is where you get to just a million decisions and it gets kind of exhausting. And then you have to keep building this guitar in your head and making sure that you know you're keeping track of how this thing's actually going to look, because there's so many details to line up. And in the end, I want a classic, iconic, badass looking slope shoulder guitar, kind of a shoulda, woulda, coulda, a guitar that is just perfectly my spec. We're doing an abalone rosette. And abalone rosettes tend to read very modern in guitar styling and guitar aesthetic to me. So one of the things I wanted to do, and Nathan and I talked through this, was, okay, how do we make this look very classic, very classy? And he settled on and recommended that I go for like a Martin D42 style rosette, which that's what we're going to do. So it's going to be the abalone, but there'll also be some black and white lines in there. And it should be really, really classy and tasteful. Super excited about this guitar. As we continue, we are going to do a pickguard. I'm going to do a Holter pickguard because Taylor Mullins is the freaking man, and he makes remarkable pickguards. And so I think we're going to do a 40 style. I'm kind of torn. I either want to do a 40s or a 50s style, either the smaller shape or the big boy. Let's do the big boy. Come on. Yeah, so we're doing we're doing a striped big guard like we did on number 36 because that is just, it's so freaking cool, and I love that. So the back strip, I think we're going to do a zipper down the back. For the bridge, we're going to do a belly up bridge. So this is a very Gibson style aesthetic. This is, if you notice it, I remember the first time I noticed it and all of a sudden I really felt like, man, it's like backwards. That's very strange to me. The first time I saw a Gibson belly up bridge and then someone pointed it out to me, I was like, oh, that's weird. It's so opposite because it's flat on the bottom and then has the bridge on top. And it just all looks backwards to me, but it's a style thing and it's a Gibson vibe that I just really, I find it so charming to look at. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do a thicker bone saddle, and we're gonna do a really compensated saddle so the intonation on the guitar is as robust and thorough and accurate as we can. Nathan has done this on a couple guitars for me already. He did it on my 57 Gibson Country Western. He's also done it on my Showalter OM 108 has a really thick saddle that allows you to do all the G compensation going back, all the B compensation going forward. It's been really, really great. Ben Padgett is another one that builds with really wide saddles. I mean, his are probably coming up almost to 3/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/4 inch. They're very substantial. So with that, I find it gives you better intonation and then just a better, more lively tone paired with unslotted bridge pins. So we're going to do unslotted bridge pins. And with that, they're going to be Ivoroid with no dot. And then we're going to do unslotted bridge pins. And yes. Oh. Okay, yes, we're doing a slotted saddle, but unslotted bridge pins. So the slotted saddle is going to sit in instead of being through, because when it goes through to the sides, it makes it more complicated for someone. I'm a guitar tech at best. I'm not a luthier, although I have built guitars. I hold that title in very high reverence. And so for me, having the through saddle just makes it a little more complicated to live with. And I don't mind sending this guitar back to Nathan to get it fixed, but I think it's also not the best use of his time to adjust my action. So anyway, I'll be in Louisiana by the time this guitar is done. I'm finishing ordering it here in Virginia before we move. So with that, we did just the default string spacing at the bridge. So now we get into the more complicated questions. The neck, both the width and the scale length, are the biggest things that make a guitar feel comfortable or uncomfortable to you, and it's where most people kind of get lost in some of the details. So I'm doing the big ones. Let's go through. I'm going through a 25.5 inch scale length, and so that's going to be a Martin scale length or a Gibson Advanced Jumbo scale length. It's not the 24 3/4. I chose to go longer scale length because I want this guitar to be more dynamic than the others, and the other number 36 that I had was a 25.5. I do love 24 3/4, but I'm totally okay with the longer scale length. The fretboard, we're going to do ebony, and we're doing some of the more modern, more streaky ebony. The headstock plate, we're going to do a two-tone sapwood Brazilian rosewood. It's going to be beautiful. I just got pictures of it right before I'm filming this video. I'll put them up here. Gosh, I'm so excited about that. We are going to do a truss rod, and we're going to put that truss rod, I believe, hang on, I'll keep looking through this, but the headstock we're doing square instead of a Gibson shape for a whole bunch of reasons. I think the square is just a little more classic, a little more subtle. I don't want it to be, I mean, this whole guitar is kind of a wink to Gibson with some Martin specs blended in. But I don't want it to be just so overtly aimed at Gibson, so I didn't want to do a Gibson headstock. So we're going to go with a square headstock. We want to do advanced jumbo inlays with the dot and the triangles on either side. We're also talking about doing either a dogwood flower inlaid or a sheep, something like that. Or a cardinal, something to symbolize both my upbringing and the time that I spent in Virginia the last little bit. I am many things. Nostalgic is one of them. And I love the place I'm from. I find it to be such a magical and special place that brings up the best in a lot of people to grow up here. So I love Virginia. I love the Valley. So we're gonna kind of share that and show that in some of the aesthetics of the guitar. So fretboard markers we talked about, custom inlays we talked about. Now we're gonna move down to the headstock shape. So we're gonna do, and we talked about that. So we're gonna do a square headstock. I'm doing a for the nut, I did want to do a locking tremolo system, like a Floyd Rose. I'm kidding. I just threw that in there to mess with Nathan. So for the nut, we're going to do a bone nut, high polish. I mean, it's just an amazing thing that Nathan does. We're doing an 1 3/4 nut width, which is both a very old nut width and a very modern nut width. There was a big chunk that it was narrower, but 1 3/4 to me just feels like home. It's just a guitar that's really comfortable to me. I've now gotten to where I can get my thumb over the top and still really feel at home with that guitar. We are doing a strap button. We are doing a volute. I freaking love volutes on the back of guitar necks, and that's going to be just a beautiful piece there. So we are doing, let's see, Ivoroid for the heel cap. We're not doing a truss rod cover because we're going to do the truss rod inside the sound hole. To me, it leaves for a cleaner look. Also, if you keep more structural integrity in the headstock, if you don't have the truss rod routed in there, there's less of a chance that the headstock would break. And so for me, that's a pretty high priority because this is a guitar that I'm going to play and use and take with me. And it's going to be, I'm not going to drop it on the floor on purpose. I don't know why I paused there. I wouldn't drop it on the guitar on the floor on purpose, but I do want it to be safe in the chance that it does. I want to give it every chance it can to be a good, tough, strong, long-lived guitar. So with all that said, now with this, for the guitar, I totally, Nathan is building this guitar without a dovetail joint in the neck. We're going to do a mortise and tenon bolt-on neck. And now the reason why is that I don't hold this as a cardinal central thing that makes a guitar sound good. I do think that getting a really tight, strong fit between the body and the neck is really important. But I think the larger question is, how many times does a guitar neck need to be off of a guitar body in its life? If the answer is anything bigger than 0, then it probably makes more sense to have a two-way solution. Adam Savage from Mythbusters talks about using nails versus screws and how he prefers using screws. He prefers using two-way solutions rather than one-way solution. Glue in a dovetail joint is, it's intended to not come apart, and to get it apart is steam and heat and pressure and wrenching, and the risk to the guitar is higher than I think it should be. So to me, it makes total sense that I would just do a mortise and tenon joint. I was so impressed with that, with how well that worked and sounded and just fit on number 36, that it was a thing that I wanted to keep going. The finish on the outside of the guitar, I want a sunburst top. I've sent Nathan probably 30 or 40 examples of sunburst for me. My favorite era of sunbursts are Gibson sunbursts from the 1930s and 1940s. The small burst, mostly dark on the outside. I think that's going to be especially beautiful with that bright, greeny, purpley abalone in the rosette. I think it's also going to be beautiful coming up against the herringbone, the ivoroid, and then that bright white maple. To me, I think that that's going to be super cool. The tuning machines, this is technically a sponsor from Stu Mack. They'd sent me a set of Waverly tuners that we're going to put on this. So it's the nickel oval tuners from Waverly. I have loved every set of Waverly tuners I've had on a guitar in the last couple of years. Super excited about this. The electronics, we're going to put a K&K Pure Mini in it because that is just a pickup that just works so well. I have a pedal board that I can travel with that just sounds killer, and I know how I can just jump in and quickly get the tone that I love out of that. All that is going into a Gator ATA. And then that guitar is going into one of my favorite cases from Gator right now is their flight case, their Dread flight case. They're not that expensive. They're proportionally. They're $200, but it's a really robust, really strong case. It fits perfectly for that guitar. That's the same case that I already have my Gibson Country Western in. And so for me, it's a really easy, reliable case because I will be traveling with this guitar. I will be taking it out when I go places. And so to me, it just makes total sense. So that's my Wright Lutherie. What was the most overwhelming thing to you? For me, it was when Nathan texted me and asked about the rosette and what's the spacing of how many lines do you want and what color, black, white, black, do you want abalone, do you want this, what's the spacing, how big do you want it? For me, those tiny details of a guitar. Even though I have owned and ordered custom guitars. I've probably ordered 10 custom guitars in my life, but I've owned thousands of guitars in my lifetime. And so it's one of those things that it's still, even in that, all the details get kind of tricky for me. So, yeah. Tell me what you think about this in the description down below. I'm Jeremy, this is Guitar Hunter. This has been Custom Ordering an amazing, super exciting Wright Lutherie slope shoulder Dread. I'll put all of the info for Nathan and his builds down below. There is not a universe in which in 10 years people are not fighting with each other to buy Wright Lutherie guitars at that point and wishing they would have ordered one in 2024. So if you're like me, you should jump on this right now. Nathan is a dear friend. He's an amazing builder. Wayne Henderson thinks that he's a great builder, and there is no higher referral, no higher praise from any guitar builder in the world than that of Wayne Henderson. So, bada bing, bada boom. All right, thanks for watching. I'm Jeremy. This is Guitar Hunter. This guitar is going to be here in a couple weeks. Cannot wait.